Hey everybody! Today, Rahdo runs through his top 10 Uwe Rosenberg games. And this has been a list that's been a long time coming because ever since Jen and I got into modern designer board games back, I don't know, 2009, 2010, like almost a decade ago, Uwe Rosenberg's games have always been there for us, and they have been some of our earliest, most strongest loves. The man knows how to make a great, great Euro, and we have played so many wonderful creations of his. Although it's really interesting, over the years, over the last decade or so, I've definitely kind of noticed a shift in his overall design philosophy. And while it's totally fine that he's done it, it's kind of made us fall out of love with him a bit. Back in the day, he was really known for big, heavy Euros that really put you through the ringer, that just tightened a noose around you and forced you to compromise and struggle to be able to achieve even the most basic goals. And I gotta say, we love that. I've often referred to it as the Rosenberg shackles that he would put us in. And over the last few years, the shackles have been disappearing, and he seems to have kind of taken on this more generous, giving spirit as a designer. And nowadays, his games seem to be much more saying to the players, hey, you know what? You're just here to have a good time. Don't worry about it. Everything's going to work out in the end. Me and Jen, my wife, we love those shackles. We'd love for them to come back, but they seem to have set sail. And that's okay because, on this list, as I was making it, I realized I have played 22 of Uwe's games. That's not all of them. There's a lot of his older stuff, a lot of his little card games I've never seen and probably never will, because most of them, like Bonanza itself, don't really work that well with two players. But that's okay because, these 10 that I can talk about, well, interestingly, some of them, the ones at the higher end of the list, I ended up not keeping. But I still respected them greatly. But why am I even talking about this? Why don't I just actually give you the list, right? That's what you're here for. Well then, let's not waste any more time. Let's start at number 10. Agricola, all creatures big and small. Which I gotta say drives me nuts. Why isn't it all creatures great and small? Big and small is just, it does not roll trippingly off the tongue. But that aside, this is such a wonderful, charming, lightweight little worker placement game. And I can't really say it rates higher because the game it's based on, Agricola, is not the greatest worker placement game in the world. That is not Agricola's strength. And, stripping down a lot of what Agricola is into a very, very tight, elegant package of very fast and consequence-laden worker placement. I might not think that would work very well, but it does work so well. And I can only say that because there has been so much expansion content that has come out for it. I think there's like 2 full expansion boxes. I think it's even gotten a big box re-release now. I'm not entirely certain about that because I've just stuck with my original version I have. But the core game is very sharp and simple and fun, but the joy of discovery comes from the fact that there are so many special buildings that you can work your way into so that every time you play, you get a different setup, a different set of goals, just a different overall feel. Even though you're kind of doing the same thing every time. There's not the big breadth of options to explore that its big brother has, but that's okay. It's still a lovely, charming little game, although again, only because of the expansions. If it had never gotten expansions, it would not have made this list, which is much like the very sad, Inland Port, which was basically Le Havre stripped down. Since Inland Port could have been Inland Port could have made this list too, but it didn't because it didn't get the same expansion love that All Creatures Big and Small did, which is why it's at my number 10. Now, let's move on to number 9. Ora et Labora, or Ora and Labora, I think some people say it. Et is just Latin for and. Ora et Labora, that's what it said on my box anyway. This is a really cool game. Another worker placement game. Uwe really does seem to like those, doesn't he? That's not the last time he'll have a worker placement on this list. But this one is definitely more interesting because this was one of the earlier games. You see this a lot more often these days. Earlier worker placement games where, hey, I'm building my own little worker placement board and you're building your little worker placement board over there. But if I want, I can sometimes send my worker over into your backyard and take advantage of the investments that you have put in. And that really elevated the experience. I mean, it's a really, really sharp design. This game all about trying to run a monastery. Aura and, prayer and Labora work. That's what these guys' jobs are. Just, pray and work over and over again to try to develop the landscape, build buildings, and do just a metric boatload of goods conversions. I don't think he's ever done more goods conversion-y goodness than he has in this game. It's really sharp, and this is one of the ones that I ultimately ended up not keeping, and that's because its one flaw is it is completely bereft of setup variability. You are going to see the same buildings come out in the same order every time you play it. It's interesting. At one point, I thought, that's okay, the game itself is so good I could live with it. But the more I played it, this is one of the games that really indicated to me and Jen just how much we thrive on variable, unique setup every time you play. And man, if Labora ever got an expansion that would mix it up a little bit so that you have different avenues to explore other than just the main two, the French and the Irish setups that you can do in the base game, I would probably bring this back in a heartbeat because the core gameplay is so good, all because of that one special thing. Oh, yeah, I can just go to your neck of the woods. Thank you very much for that. I'll be taking advantage of that. It worked really nicely. Super sharp game, number 9, or at Labora. But now, let's talk about number 8. Nusfjord. Is this the newest game on the list? No, it's not, but it's almost one of his newest games. I think it's his newest big, heavy Euro. I'd have to double check that. But anyway, this is a very, very good game too. Another worker placement game. The guy seems to have a rut, and he loves it. And that's cool, because Nusfjord is another great game. And it's all about, I'm trying to remember, was it Norwegian fishing villages? And trying to, harvest goods, convert goods into points, build up your own infrastructure and engine. And it had a lot of really interesting twists. One of the most interesting ones is there's this notion of the tribal elders who we have to kind of take care of so that we can unlock their special abilities as well. It's a sharp, sharp game. A lot to love here. And it gets back to one of those things we love so much that he does so well. Tons of set of variability. This game comes with so many cards. It's absolutely amazing, and I absolutely loved it. And interestingly, I would almost go so far as to say this game almost kind of brought back a little bit more of the shackles because it's a tight game, it's a fast game, it's tough to get done, everything you want to get done in its short playtime. So there's a lot to recommend there. So why didn't we keep this one? Why is it higher on my list instead of lower on my list? I had one issue with it, or I should say Jen and I had one issue with it, which is it does have unique player objectives you're going to play through every single time. But it doesn't tell you what those objectives are right up front. You get drip-fed them at various points throughout the game. And while on the surface that's okay, Jen and I found on repeated play there could definitely be circumstances where, well, okay, I don't know what I'm ultimately going to need to do, but I'll just set out and try to do the best I can. And then you get halfway through the game and, oh, you know what I've invested my time in? That's not going to pay off as well as I would have hoped. And what do you know? Through pure serendipity, what you've invested time in, just because of the choices you made based on the cards you had are available to you right from the get-go, the choices you've invested in are going to pay off bigly because they happen to synchronize so well with these objectives. That was really heartbreaking because everything else about this game was just rock'em sock'em. And don't get me wrong, I know a lot of people actually argue that that's a strength of the game. This unpredictability, this you set out into the great unknown and it heightens the drama. When those moments come up where you're like, oh, what are we actually trying to do here, boss? Well, I'll tell you at the end of chapter 2, wow, this changes everything. And that's okay if it changes everything for everybody, but if some people get lucky and, oh, this doesn't change anything, I'm just going to go on ahead and take advantage of this thing, that was kind of a problem. And it's interesting, it represents another thing I think that has kind of made it into some of Uwe's designs that wasn't quite so prevalent. This notion that I want to surprise you along the way. I want there to be these kind of random seeds, not at the beginning of the game when you can strategize about it throughout, but during gameplay that can really radically shift things up and force you to reconsider. I admire and respect that. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, it's just not a thing for me and Jed. And so that's why Nusfjord, which ultimately we didn't keep, but I still very much respected, is at number 8. But now let's move on to number 7. A Feast for Odin. And now, I would be not surprised at all if a lot of people name this their favorite Uwe, or certainly their favorite big box heavy complex Euro Uwe, because this is Uwe at his best. It's a super sharp game, all about Worker placement, yes, once again, worker placement to develop your Viking clan and focus on 1.5 million things. And this game is just really amazing. So many people love it with such good reason, and Jen and I respect it a lot too. The big thing that sets this one aside from all the others is the notion of, oh yeah, well, I'm sending out workers to get the resources I need to be able to do the things I need. Like, kind of it's kind of his motif. This one's really interesting, and it adds almost this completely separate game over here to the side, where a big part of what you're doing is trying to get all these resources you can convert into Tetris-shaped pieces, for lack of a better term, and try to store them in your big, gigantic storehouse. And so you're playing this crazy, deep Tetris game. At the same time, you're playing this goods conversion game, and the two meld together so well. It's really lovely. So, why did this one rate higher on the list? As a game that I really respected and wanted to love, but ultimately got rid of. Again, that nasty little, hey, random happenstance pops its head in here. Again, a lot of people love it, but Jen and I were not keen on the fact that you are constantly getting drip-fed certain resources throughout the game that you cannot anticipate. If you knew what types of resources you were going to get, you could plan for that, and and it could help you steer your ship. Instead, you get fed these resources, and sometimes they're exactly what you need, and everything works out beautifully, and you just say, "Oh, I am sailing to Easy Street, everybody." And other times, they are repeatedly resources that do nothing for you because of the choices you've made. And you just keep on accruing these resources, and you're like, ugh. And it could have been fixed in a lot of different ways. You know, draw 3, pick 1, or there's a queue of them out on display and you get to pick something to give you a little bit more control over that random chaos. It was our same issue we had with Nusfjord, we have with A Feast of Odin. And I should say, this is an issue that I am definitely in the minority on. My wife and Jen and I, we had a problem with it. Most people don't. But as a real aficionado, I played 22 of the man's games. I know that this little hitch is what keeps us from putting it on the table when I could put some of the other ones I'm about to talk about. Because from now on, that was number 6, Feast for Odin. But now, let's move on to, I'm sorry, no, that was number 7, Feast for Odin. Now, number 6 is definitely a keeper, and it's getting back to the lighter side of things, Spring Meadow. This is a great Tetris-style game. Remember I mentioned Tetris pieces on the last game? This has been something that Uwe's had kind of a... I wasn't fair saying... I didn't want to imply that Uwe is a one-trick pony and he just keeps falling back to worker placement over and over again. Although, we're not done talking about worker placement yet, folks. Oh no. He's definitely got other tricks up his sleeve, too. And for the last few years, he's really been investigating and doing deep, deep dives in the notion of polyomino Tetris-style puzzle piece tiling. And he's done 4, 5, 6 now, I think, different games that all try to scratch that, oh, I've got these different Tetris-style pieces, I'm going to put them together to score points. How do I get the pieces? How do I score points off the pieces? There's 1 million different ways he can do it. He's done it 6 different ways now, I think. But of all of them, Spring Meadow is the best one. I really, more than Patchwork or Cottage Garden or Patchwork Express, or I think there's another Patchwork coming, I'm not quite sure about that, or, Cottage Garden, and I mean, there were several of them, and more than Feast for Odin as well. This one is the best, and I think, well, I know why. It's because, amongst all of them, this is the most harsh and unforgiving one. This is the one that, unlike all the others where you can pretty much build wherever you want, dude, it's okay, and you'll get all these pieces to snap together eventually. The Spring Meadow forces you, well, actively encourages you to build your pieces on the board like you would in Tetris, from the bottom up, making strong foundations and building upward, instead of just kind of building from wherever you want outwards, and that is so much more compelling. Hey, maybe it's compelling in part because, hey, I worked at Nintendo when Tetris came out. I know what a social, a societal shift it was in terms of how people view video games in the overall zeitgeist. Tetris is a big deal, and like I said, Spring Meadow comes closest to recreating that in wonderful, lovely board game form. And it's just a sharp, sharp game on top of it. It's beautiful, it's well presented. It's his best polyomino game to date. It is my number 6, Spring Meadow. Then let's talk about number 5. Oh yeah, now we're getting into the good stuff. We're getting into the classic Uwe. Let's talk about At the Gates of Loyang. This is not a worker placement game. This is actually, what would you call it? It's an engine building game at heart, and it is hard to think of an engine building game that has that engine more prominently on display, with you constantly trying to push it through its paces and get it to produce for you exactly what you need. This is a game where we are farmers/merchants in medieval China, literally at the Gates of Loyang, growing our vegetables and then trying to sell them to customers. And what's really beautiful about this game is the fact that once you get a customer, you draft for cards and all, and you get a customer, you say, okay, I'm going to start producing squash for this customer, or lentils, or whatever it is that I grow in my fields. Once I get him on and I make that first delivery, that guy doesn't go away. He comes back the next day or the next round, and he wants that delivery again and again and again. And if I can't find a way to deliver to this guy over and over and over again, because everybody in this game is a repeat customer. There's variable levels of how much of a repeat customer there are, but they keep coming back. And that means if I take this guy on, I've got to commit not only to fulfilling his requirements today, but maybe for half of the game. And that really makes the puzzle of how to create your vegetable generating engine so much more compelling, because it's not one and done style stuff. This really feels unique. And then if all that weren't enough, it has this awesome, amazing card draft, unlike anything I've ever seen before. Where players are kind of putting stuff into a common pool and trying to take stuff out, and there's push your luck, and there's lots of really cool stuff. I love everything about this game. Well, not one thing. It comes with a lot of cards, and which again is kind of a hallmark of a lot of his games. So much variability from play to play based on what cards become available, depending on the huge stack that you'll get shuffled into the game. A lot of the cards in this game, unfortunately, are kind of mean-spirited. Take that. Oh, I steal your stuff. I destroy your stuff. And I'm like, oh, why is this here? I'm so happy that Uwe has very rarely dabbled in that end of the pool, and this is one. Fortunately, I only play Luoyang as a two-player game. Like all of these, I only play it with my wife at 2. And because of that, I don't really think it hurts the game to just pull all those take that cards out of the system. At a higher player count, maybe they'd be more necessary. I don't know. I've only ever played as a two-player game. But I can say we have played it enough that it is my number 5. And it would probably rank higher on Jen's list. She loves this so much. But anyway, that's number 5 at the Gates of Loyang. Then we've got number 4. And this one might be a surprise to a lot of people. It is Bonanza, the Duel, which is crazy, yo. This is we take a interruption from Uwe's big heavy euros to do a simple little card game, one of his most popular games of all time is Bonanza, which I've never actually played because officially it requires at least 3 players to play. But almost all versions of Bonanza have always traded on this core idea of I've got a hand of cards, and unlike pretty much any other card game out there, I can't play them in any order I want. I must play them first card in, first card out. Whenever I get a new card, it goes to the end of the queue, and I'm not going to be able to play that card for quite a while. I got to play this card, and I don't want to play this card. I want to play the card that's halfway through my queue right now, thank you very much, so that I can harvest beans and score points and all that kind of stuff. So, Bonanza is a hugely popular game, and Bonanza Duel is a redesign of it specifically to work for 2 players only. And Bonanza has always been great, and finally playing Duel, I got to see why. Because that central puzzle, again, is harsh and constricting. It will make you do mental gymnastics trying to figure out, this is not what I need. How can I make this work? As opposed to so many of his games that don't even make my list because they're just really easygoing, and you're never really put in front of you such a mind-bending puzzle as this. But what Duel does so well that makes me respect it so much that I rank it fairly high is, this is rare in two-player games, negotiation. I guess negotiation is a big part of, trade between players is a big part of regular Bonanza. Again, I've never played it. They find a way to make me giving you presents and you deciding when to take presents or not a big part of the game. And normally in 2-player that could never work because everything's zero sum. Everything I take from myself and give to you, it implicitly hurts me and helps you. In this game, that's not the case. It's beautiful the way it works, so sharp. And I'm so sad that I lost my copy of Bonanza Duel in the move from Malta back here to the States. I got to get another copy because it's so good. It is my number 4 Uwe Rosenberg game, Bonanza, the Duel. But now let's talk about number 3. We're back to the heavy, meaty stuff. Merkator. Wow, this game is so sharp. One of his best, not surprisingly, because it ranks so high. And this is some people call it a pick up and deliver game, and I suppose that's true, but not really. I define pick up and deliver as a game where you have an avatar, you physically moves through the world, picks things up, and then has to physically move through the world and drop things off, and this takes multiple turns. It's the epitome of drudgery, and it's rare that we find a game where we really like pick up and deliver. This game has the trappings of pick up and deliver because, hey, I'm a German merchant during the 100-Year War, and sometimes I do want to travel over to Moscow to get some particular some particular items that they do want for sale down in Spain or even in the New World. And but the game takes all the travel time out. I go here, and then on a future turn, I go here. And it's all about trying to complete contracts, trying to get the right goods at the right time. And oh my gosh, does this game have more goods than any of his other games? I'm pretty sure it has more goods than Le Havre, especially because all the goods tiles are two-sided. It's crazy. There's so much going on, so much to go. All these contracts, all on display. You want to do everything, and it's very, very tricky to find the right path to victory in this game. But there's one thing that makes this game so special. Absolutely amazing. On a turn when you might decide, hey, now's the time that I'm going to go to the New World, or I'm going to go to England or whatever, because I got a contract I want to drop off, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to complete these goods. I'm going to convert, whatever it is I'm going to do. The other players around the table have the opportunity to say, oh, you're going to England? I'll come along, thanks. And I get to do stuff on your turn so that I can complete my own stuff. I don't have to waste my own turn to do it. And because of this, central conceit of the game is when you're trying to decide what goals you're going after, you are very invested in what other players are going after because you want to piggyback off of them. And to do that, you have to pay the greatest resource in any Uwe Rosenberg game ever. Time. Time is actually represented by little cardboard chits that represent how much time do I have to do things. And yeah, I could have used my whole turn and spent a lot less time going out to England, but I'll just spend more time by piggybacking off of you. I assume that time represents me negotiating with you so that I can ride along in your caravan and stuff like that. Thematically, it works okay, but gameplay-wise, oh, it's resplendent. Merkator is such a wonderful game. Pure Euro, pure Uwe greatness. And it's my number 3. But we're not done yet, folks. How about number 2? How about Glass Road? Wow, this game just knocks the socks off us. And for largely, a big part of it is for the same reason we really loved Merkator. This is yet another game where we are trying to build up our own little fiefdom, get the resources we need to get the tiles we need that represent different buildings, that give us special abilities, that allow us to run our engine to keep on getting better and better and better and snowball. That's all cool. Obviously, if you hadn't known before, you know by now, Uwe does that a lot. He returns to that well-traveled well. But here's the interesting thing about this. The action selection you do in this game is all about inviting certain workers, carpenters and fishermen and bakers or whatever it might. I don't remember what they all are now, but different workers are available to you. Everybody has a set of cards that represent, I need to invite this particular craftsman or laborer to my neck of the woods to be able to do what I need to do to convert goods, to build things, or whatever it might be. That's cool. Every round, everybody decides, right, who am I inviting this round? And you have to be very, very careful because ideally you want to be the only person who invites Mr. X out to your neck of the woods, because that means you get access to all the actions he can do. But if you have the misfortune of inviting Mr. X, Mr. Carpenter, out to your neck of the woods at the same time that I do, then you and I have to split his time and I don't get to do as much as I was going to do. Ah! Oh, it's so wonderful, this game. I mean, you're so involved and invested in what everybody else is doing. And, the space you have to work in is so tight and confined because we're all basically vying for control of this very specific resource, these laborers and craftspeople. Can I time it so that I get the full enchilada? If I don't get the full enchilada and my plans go awry, how am I going to fix this problem? That's what the game is full of, and it's so beautiful and so fast, too. Maybe his shortest big, heavy Euro of all. Absolutely adore it to pieces. Number 2, Glass Road, but there's still the number 1, folks. And really, could it be any surprise what number 1 is? I started at number 10 with Agricola, all creatures big and small, and I'm going to end at number 1 with Agricola, the granddaddy. When I said right up front that we ran into Uwe very early in our board game career, it was Agricola. This was one of the first games I fell in love with, and I'm still in love with it to date. It is another worker placement game. It is another goods conversion game, converting goods into other goods into points. It is another game of engine building to be able to get the resources you need to build the buildings you get, to get the workers you need, etc., etc. It's all about medieval farming. It's very thematic in its way, but really, its core game is pretty simple. Quite frankly, most of the other worker placement games I've mentioned are superior to it in terms of doing interesting things with the worker placement mechanism. What makes Agricola stand head and shoulders above all of Uwe's other games, though, is what happens in the first few minutes. In the first few minutes of the game, you are given via random shuffle an obscene amount of cards. They are called occupation cards and improvement cards, minor improvement cards, because major improvements are in the game. Every time you play, you're always going to get access to the same major improvements, but the minor improvements and the occupation cards you have available to you from game to game radically change the overall feel and tenor of the game. What happens is you get all these cards and you have to figure out, right, over the course, I forget what it is. Is it 7 and 7? 7 occupations, 7 minor? I believe that's what you ultimately end up with. And interestingly, the game comes with rules for several ways to do it. That you might do a draft right up front with other players, so there's kind of this whole power draft to get the right hand of cards that sync well. Or what Jen and I do, we prefer the variant where you draw 10 of each of these two types of cards. You think about all of them, you try to find good synergy between them, and then you discard 3 of each. So you end up back down at that magic number 7. So you start with your 7 occupations and your 7 minor improvements. Here's the thing though, however you end up getting that hand, even if it's just through random luck, the reality is over the course of this game, you're going to get to play 3, maybe 4, at a stretch 5 of them. But right from the get-go, you make your plan. This is what I have. These are the tools I will be able to learn. I'll be able to teach my workers so they can do special stuff, the occupations. These are the tools I will be able to build to give me access to what I need, the shortcuts that allow me to succeed. Those are my improvements to my farm. And I'm not going to play all of them. There's impossible I could play all of them. But I'm going to try and play a select few that come together to sing and make the impossible possible. Agricola is, I don't think many people would argue, is Uwe's most harsh and punishing and restricting game of all. Because at the end of every round, if you don't feed your happy little villagers, your happy little family of medieval farmers, they will starve and you will lose so many points. So you're constantly under this incredible threat, this pressure to provide for them, while still not just surviving, but thriving as well. And that means smart play of cards and trying to make this plan that you came up with at the beginning of the game play out over an hour and a half of worker placement goodness. Oh my gosh, Agricola is so brilliant. It nothing else in the industry comes close to it. The sheer depth and breadth of replayability it provides through this collection of cards, and not to mention the fact that so many expansions have come out and continue to come out to this very day, just creating a never-ending, bottomless pit of great game design ideas to explore and experiment with. It's amazing. It is Uwe's best game. It is in my top 10 games of all time, as is my wife's. It is Agricola, and that's it, folks. That's the top 10. An amazing collection of games from an amazing designer. I haven't always agreed with the choices he's gone with, but I still respect him greatly, and I still, to this day, look forward to whatever he's got up his sleeve next. Thank you, Mr. Rosenberg, for all the many great hours you've given us. And thanks, everybody, for watching. Have a very nice day. Talk to you later. So long. Bye-bye.